As you are aware, you know that three key objectives of DBS are ensuring availability, ensuring performance, and securing data. When you consider the first two, ensuring availability and ensuring performance, so we can consider the types of servers we want to use actually. So the first type of server we can consider is dedicated server, is also called a single instance database, in which we'll have one database, one instance. Any number of clients, it can be 1 or 100 or it can be even more. So we'll have to work with database through the same instance. You know that in database server environment we'll have one database and instance. Two components are there. Database is the place where data is stored, and instance is the interface for users to work with the database. Without instance, users will not be able to work with database. So they have to connect through an instance to work with the database. In that case, so database is a place where data is stored. Instance is a component which helps users to access that data. So in dedicated server, we'll have one database, we give a name for it. We'll have one instance, we'll give a name for it. Usually it is same, need not be same. So they can be different also. So you can say the other type of database and we can consider is RAC, a real application cluster, in which we'll have a cluster of components where we'll have one database. For that we'll have multiple instances. So database is hosted in a shared storage subsystem, which is a shared storage component, which can be shared by multiple servers. Node 1, node 2, for example, can share this same shared storage. So shared storage subsystem is a place where we going to place our database files, and we give name for our database. Nodes are the places where we're going to host our instances. You know that instances are the interface for users to work with the database. Now we got two instances, both are interconnected. Any users can connect to any instance and work with the database. So some users can connect to instance 1 present in node 1 and work with the database present in shared storage subsystem. So some users can connect to, or some clients can connect to instance 2, work with the database which is there in shared storage subsystem, and this is clustered here. So for one database, we'll have multiple instances in rack environment. So this we can call as rack database or a clustered database. So what is the advantage if you take clustered database? So if you consider dedicated server, we got one database, one instance. For any reason, if this instance is down now, if this instance comes down, fails, is not accessible, if this is not accessible, so then users will not be work with the database. So if you take the same scenario, if an instance comes down or if a node comes down for any reason, so still users are able to work with the database. So nowadays we can't expect instance to fail frequently as it used to happen probably initial days. Now more than availability, so anyway it is there always. So what is important is also performance. Here if you take, we got set of users, maybe assume that okay 1 to 300. So they have to use the database through same instance, means they are contending for same set of resources. Whereas if you take rack environment, if you go for consider same number of users 1 to 300, so you are distributing them to two different servers, means that much of load is reduced on each instance actually. So 150 users will connect to one instance, the other 150 sessions to database through another instance. So here performance is also taken care. So probably you can consider a rack as is generally called as a high ability feature, but by default it is also a good high performance feature. So this is about two types of databases. So serving wise, one is dedicated server or single instance database, then is rack, real application cluster, so which we can call it as cluster database also. One database, multiple instances, two or more instances. So when you consider database server, you got two components, one is database, one is instance. So database is a place where data is stored in organized way. How to organize? We got structures for that, physical structure and logical structure. So instance is a way of or interface for users to work with the database, where it is a combination of memory structures and background processors. But when it comes to database, we got two structures, physical structure and logical structure. So physical structure is nothing but set of files. Set of files. Each file is used for a specific purpose to store a specific type of data, and managing that data is different for each file. Similar to that, we got logical structure where Oracle divides internally logically so that okay, data can be organized well so that it can be processed efficiently. Now, if we consider physical structure alone, we got different files for different type of data. First one is data file. First one is data file, which is mandatory for database and is a binary file. We should not use any other mechanism to edit this file, make changes to the content. We should use Oracle mechanism only. Using SQL, we have to interact with Oracle database to make any changes to the content of the file. So mandatory file must be there, binary file. Redo log file is also mandatory, a binary file. Control file, mandatory file, binary file. So these three are mandatory and all three are binaries. So all these three files put together probably can count as our database. But apart from these three files, we got few more files which are important for us. One is parameter file. So we need an instance. How to initialize that instance with structures is memory structures and background processors should be started is we want to define them in parameter file. Means what is that instance structure database needs, we are going to define it in parameter file. Required, not mandatory, required. We got text file, binary file. We'll discuss more about each one of them later. Arclog file is not mandatory for database. It's nothing but offline copy of read log file. Optional, but again binary. It's nothing but offline copy of read log file. Whatever the content present in read log file will be copied to arclog file. That's why it is called as archive log file. Offline copy of read log file. Password file. If you need super users in your database, then only you need password file. Otherwise, it is not required. Optional, but again a binary file. A binary file. So these are the some of the important components of database under physical structure. So of database under logical structure, so key components are table space within which we'll have one or more segments. So segments are made up of one or more extents. Extents are made up of two or more continuous blocks. So these are your logical structural components of database. So each logical structural components which we are going to discuss in detail, because that is what we're going to take care of in administration generally. So let us look into first important file of database, that is data file. So data file is one of the important file of database because as name itself says is a place where data is stored. So for us, data file is a place where data is stored, for a special file, but for operating system is an operating system file. But Oracle should use that file for its purpose. So that's why whenever file is allocated by operating system, it's going to allocate a group of OS blocks actually. But here what Oracle does is for data file, those OS blocks are grouped into Oracle blocks. Means internally we'll have numerous Oracle blocks. Internally, those Oracle blocks are made up of multiple OS blocks actually. So when you take data file, if you look into the characteristics of data file, so it's a binary file. We must not edit using any editors, operating system editors. Basically meant for storing data. So it can be application data, user data, or it can be metadata, which is of database, or tools or utilities data. Whatever the type of data is stored in data file. Minimum we need two files. Why two files? We'll see that later. Okay, we'll see that later. Now when it comes to file wise, we got two types of files, data file wise. One is system data file and is non-system data file. System data file must be created when database is created. Without probably when we say database, it is nothing but system data file. Is primarily for storing data dictionary. What is data dictionary? Is nothing but data about database itself. In general, we can call it as a repository also. Repository of Oracle database. Data about Oracle database. Okay, so stored in system data file, and we call it as data dictionary. By default, users permanent data is also stored in system data file. which we must avoid. We must avoid this. So by default, users temporary data is also stored in system data file, which we must avoid. So we must ensure that system data file is meant for storing only system data, that is data dictionary. We should not allow users to use, though they can use by default. We have to make provisions so that users should use, okay, so other than system data file for storing their data, either it is permanent or temporary data. In that case, what is that we have to do is we have to create non-system data files through logical structures, so that what will happen is meant for storing other than system data, particularly users permanent or temporary data, can be table data or index data, and even it can be undo data and temporary data also. So now we can come to content of data file. We can consider two types of contents. One is data file, then is temp file. So we can consider two types of files, data file, temp file. Basically, data files are meant for storing data, but here why we call it data file or temp file is fundamentally data file contains or stores permanent data, but optionally it can store temporary data also, which is a concern. Which should not happen. As much as possible, avoid it. Temp files are meant only for temporary data. That is important factor here. So data files basically for permanent data. We must ensure that it is used for permanent data, but optionally it can also be used to store temporary data, which is a concern which we should take care. Temp file is only for temporary data. We can't use it for storing permanent data at all. Now when it comes to file management, we got two types of file management. One is we can call it as MMF, other one is OMF. Manually managed file, Oracle managed file. What is meant by manually managed file? Means being administrators, we going to manage this file. Means what? When it is required through logical structures, we going to create it. So we extend it if required. We reduce the size if required. So when not required, we're going to remove it. Okay, so we will remove it manually. So manually we have to remove it. We must ensure that it has been removed. If you don't remove, so you're going to waste space. So created by us through logical structures must be removed from operating system whenever it is been dropped. We're going to drop it. But actually it is not removed. We have to ensure that it is been removed so that we can reclaim space to operating system. Whereas Oracle managed file, path we can predefine. File is automatically created by Oracle whenever we create a logical structure. When not required, if you drop the logical structure, so it is dropped as well as removed also from operating system. So what is the advantage here is? So file is created when required, file is removed, dropped and removed when not required. So advantage is you're going to take care of space. You get availability of space. But now when you consider manual managed file is not so useful kind of thing, but one way it is useful also. So we can call as experts. As by experts, we can use it because we can store the file in whichever the location we want, so that we can distribute the IO. So if you don't have a IO distribution mechanism, so then you can go for Oracle managed files. Otherwise, what will happen in Oracle managed file, path is predefined. So files will go to the predefined location, and it will go to only one location. You might create only 10 files, 100 files, all will go to same location. If that is not a structure in which IO is taken care, so you will face IO problem. So in that case, you should take care of it. Means with Oracle managed files, manual managed file, we got some advantages, some drawbacks, which we should take care of it. Depending on requirement, we should go for it. So we'll discuss more about these factors in administration also. Okay, now let us look into the next most important file, redo log file. So you know that data file is for storing data. It can be system data like data dictionary, it can be user data, application data, it can be tools, features data. What are the data? We store it in data files. But whenever we use that data, okay, so and if you modify that data, it will happen in memory and will be taking time to write to file actually. In that case, what will happen? Your changes are there in memory. If memory crashes, comes down for any reason, so it becomes a problem. In that case, what will happen? Any change that you do should be safeguarded, so that you should have either data or change. What Oracle does is it is going to give priority for change, because it can't write data frequently, because it will degrade performance, because which is one of our criteria. So, but if change is not preserved, availability is affected. Oracle should take care of both now. Both now. So, for example, if a person deposits money, and that change will happen in memory. Okay, so and it is the data is there, permanent data is there in memory. Previous data is there in data file. Now, if memory crashes and if your change is not available, it becomes a problem. To overcome this, Oracle will use redo log file. So redo log file, what is redo log file? Means do it again, redo, do it again. What it is going to do it means it is going to apply the changes as users have done earlier, because whenever users are going to make the changes to the data, actually it will happen in memory. That change, whenever it is made permanent, commit, okay, so or it can be any other type of transactions, so immediately it is written to read log file. It is written to read log file. So here, when you take considering whatever the change written will be done again, redo. When it will redo is whenever there is a failure. Means if your memory is lost, change is not lost, because it is safeguarded by Oracle by reading that change to read log file. Any permanent change is safeguarded so that it can redo it again. What are the changes done by earlier by users can be done again by Oracle, so without interfering or losing the data. Now, when it comes to read log file, certain characteristic of read log file is a binary file. We should not edit, okay, using operating system editors. So meant for storing change vectors. Whenever we say change, okay, is written in the form of change vector. Is written in the form of change vector. What is change vector is? So it will contain, okay, so version number of the block which it is changing, block address, and maintains a transaction code. Means what is that change is happening to which particular block is maintained here, and this will be grouped also. Group of change vectors will be written. Okay, so and this group will be applied as it is, whatever the change is done. So means no need to apply in the form of SQL, it can apply in the form of change vector itself whenever there is a failure. Minimum we need 2 files, and they must belong to 2 different groups. That means whenever we want to create database, we must have minimum 2 groups. In each group, we must have one member, one file. Group is logical. Within that, we'll have one physical members. So, for example, if we take classroom, so when we say classroom, so classroom is logical entity. Within that, okay, we'll have students. So you can consider students are the members here. Okay, students are the members. Similar to that, read log files are the members here. So classroom is your read log group. Within a read log group, maximum we can have 5 members. Maximum we can have 5 members, but each member is of same size. They will contain same information. So when we say 5th standard classroom, so students present in that class is of 5th standard only. Similar to that, whenever we say read log file, each file is of same size. Okay, each file is of same size. And whenever changes are written, is written to all the members. What is the advantage? We'll see that. So minimum 2 files are required, and they must belong to 2 different groups. Maximum we can have 255 or even more number of groups now onwards. So minimum 1 member in each group. Maximum we can have 5 members in a group, and each member is of same size. Now here, whenever changes are written to read log file, they are written sequentially. First change first, second change second, third change third, fourth is fourth. This is how it will be written. If one change is written to one member, if you got one more member, that same change is also written to other member also. Each member will contain same amount of change vectors, same amount of changes. They get filled at the same time. You know the reason, because they are of same size, will contain same information. They get filled at a time. Whenever real members are filled, maybe only one or multiple, so it will move to the next group itself. It will move to the next group. This moving we call it as lock switch. We call it as lock switch. So change vectors are written sequentially, one after another. Change 1, 2, 3, it will write in this way. And in a group, if you got members, they're of same size, will be of same size, will contain same information. Okay, if change 1 is written here, is also written to other group. Change 2 is written, it will be written to the other member also. So like this, every change is written to each member, and as each member is of same size, they get filled at a time and it will move to the next group. This moving we call as lock switch. We call as lock switch. So what is meant by lock switch is nothing but when a group is filled. When we say group is filled, members of that group, one or more members, they are filled, and moving will happen to the next group. We call as lock switch. For every lock switch, a number is generated called as lock sequence number, which will get generated for every lock switch and will increment by one number. So lock switch number 25, next lock switch is 26. After that, one more lock switch is 27. So then it will go 28. Like this, lock switch will keep happening. And whenever it comes back to the first group, so it will start overwriting the contents. It will start overwriting the contents. You might have only 2 groups, which is minimum. You might have 4 groups, or you might have even more. So groups are used in road robin fashion. Suppose if you got more number of groups, you'll move to the group to group. You don't skip any group. You'll move to the last available group in the configuration and it'll come back to the first group. Once it moves back to the first group, it starts overwriting. Next lock switch will overwrite in the next group. So this will keep continuing. So the contents are of read log file is overwritten. So here we must have minimum 2 groups. In each group, at least one member. So changes are written in sequential order. If you got multiple members, same change is written to each member. So they get filled at a time because of they are of same size. And once group is filled, means members are filled, moving will happen to the next group. We call it as lock switch. Whenever lock switch happens, so a number is generated called as lock sequence number, which will increment by 1. Which will increment by 1. So this is about redo log file. So next most important file is control file, which is again a mandatory file of database. So similar to data file, control file, redo log file, control file is also mandatory file. If you take characteristics, is a binary file. Is a binary file. So it's meant for storing structure of database. Means structure means about database name, its mode, Oracle mode or non-Oracle mode, and other details. Status of the database. So file status, whether they are online, offline, okay, open, read only, and other factors will be maintained. And optionally, will maintain RMAN information also. It is optional entry. So whenever we create database, one control file must be created. So control file you can consider a ledger for database. So minimum one ledger should be maintained. One ledger should be maintained. Maximum number of control file depends on whether we go for manually managed file or worker managed file. If we go for manually managed file, we can have maximum 8 control files. If you go for worker managed file, maximum we can have only 5 control files. What is the reason? You'll come to know later. But basically, control file must be created. At least one must be created. We can have multiple. Generally, we can go for up to 3, kept in 3 different locations. Means as if we got 3 ledgers. If one ledger is lost, we're going to use the other ledger. Similar to that, if one control file is lost, so still we got other control files. We can multiplex easily. We can multiplex easily. So, and what is that information that is stored in control file is? So we'll have a database name, database mode, table space informations, data file informations, status of these components. And control file, we can have 2 types of file. One is manually managed file, one is worker managed file. So depending on requirement, you can decide to go for it. So here, whenever your database is dropped, control file is also removed automatically. If it is manually managed file, so sometimes we have to take care manually. But one more difference is, if you go for manually managed file, maximum we can have 8 control file. But if you go for worker managed file, we can have only 5 control files. So reason we'll see that later. Basically, control file contains structure of database, status of database. If required, if you are using RMAN, even RMAN information is also maintained in control file. So this is about three mandatory files of database: data file, read log file, and control file. So all three are binaries. At the same time, they are mandatory for database. What is my mandatories? If any problem happens with any one of this file, it is going to affect the availability of the database. That is why they are called as mandatory.